Okay, good morning everybody, and we're delighted that this is our second year of being involved with Historic Towns. Very interesting to have a lot of learning from Coyle last year, both from the HDI and from the residential occupancy that Philip referred to earlier. We decided, I suppose, based on our learning from last year, to be a bit more ambitious, so we took on more than one street. And a public building as well, so there was 15 buildings done for a relatively small budget, in the sense it was 200,000. But what we have found is that the project is done by the regeneration unit here, which is a multidisciplinary team. And I think it was the Minister mentioned at the start that towns need to be dealt with by not just one department. So by bringing together these projects into a regeneration team, which has planning, economic, rural development, engineering, we're bringing, I suppose, the full force of the local authority into how we deal with these schemes. We would have learned again from last year in terms of communication that people very much relate back to their home area. And we did a video which we'll share with you now. Excuse me, out to our global diaspora, and it had a massive reaction. There was 13,500 of a reach, and over 3,000 people reacted and engaged and shared stories, and were delighted with what has happened on the street. So I suppose it really shows the importance of connecting to people in terms of placemaking, the businesses and the community. Our presentation, I'm trying to do it at speed because it's a three-way, because multidisciplinary side of the house. So I'm going to just link you into the video, and Breata will take over from then John, and I'll come back in at the end. So hopefully the video does what I wanted to do.
We're in Church Street in our lovely town of Roscommon, looking at the results of the Historic Towns initiative, which saw an investment of nearly 160,000 into the historic part of Roscommon. This initiative was sponsored by the Department of Culture and Heritage and the Gaeltacht, and it has been supported by Roscommon County Council and has received the buy-in from the local historic group. And we're witnessing a huge transformation of Church Street, which Church Street lies between the Church of Ireland Spire and the Catholic Church Spire. And looking around today, you can see the initiative, which has seen a lot of conservation work and preservation work, but also an enhancement to historic buildings that were somewhat in neglect.
We're standing on the corner of Church Street and Abbey Street, and it's here in Roscommon town. It's a really important connection of streets. To the bottom of Church Street behind me is the main retail area in Roscommon town, focused around Main Street and the square. And to the other side of me, we have the courthouse, the Garda station, and the county council offices, which really act as an administrative hub in the town. This street behind me would have had a lot of retail 100 years ago, even 50 years ago, with people living over shops, small-scale local businesses. In recent years, that activity has died away. There's now a lot of dereliction and, I suppose, smaller scale, more transient, temporary shops and so forth. The purpose of this scheme has been to really reinvigorate these two streets and to begin to encourage footfall and greater connectivity between the retail centre of the town and the administrative hub. The objectives of the scheme are twofold. Firstly, to carry out preventative maintenance and repairs. This would include anything from fixing loose slates up to and including reslating one or two of the buildings where the roofs were in very poor condition. A lot of the buildings had lightweight gutters, either in PVC or pressed aluminium. These were all removed and replaced with traditional cast iron gutters, which would have a lifespan of 80 years. So therefore, we're really laying down something that will last for a long time into the future and make the buildings easier to maintain. It's not a comprehensive programme of repairs, it's a start, and we would hope that the building owners would build on it and carry out further work to help secure, what are two very important streets in the town. The second equally important element of it is to improve the aesthetics. I mentioned the gutters, and that's obviously a key starting point. Good, strong, clean gutter lines helps, but also to take the paintwork on the outside of the buildings and totally freshen it up, and to be quite bold about the colours that we picked. So you can see behind we have quite an array of colours replacing what would have been very muted magnolias and light greys. So it's to bring a bit of vibrancy into the place and to really draw the eye from the main street up through Church Street and towards the very fine public buildings we have near where we're standing now. So we've been quite adventurous. I'd like to thank the individual building owners who've been very supportive in allowing me to pick some fairly punchy colours, and they've shown a lot of trust, and I think it's paid off. We're also picking up, you can see in the building that's scaffolded just there, we have a brick facade, a very fine early 20th century brick facade that had been overpainted, and we're carefully removing the paint from the brick so that we're bringing back that brick facade as a feature on the streetscape. So I suppose that in essence is what the scheme is about.
Okay, so I'm just going to join in here. Sorry, I'm Breata. So I'm just going to focus on why we selected the project area and how this sits within the overall conservation and regeneration plans for the town. So after the success of the 2019 Boyle project, we were very interested in partaking in the HTI in 2020, and Roscommon Town was selected as focus of our application. So Roscommon Town is centrally located in the Midlands, close to Athlone and Galway. It has a current population of just under 6,000 and has a wide rural hinterland. Historically, Roscommon would have developed as a vibrant market town, and to this day is an important mart in the area. It has a growing arts and cultural scene and has a very active archaeological and historical society. The area is rich in historical assets, and this application was based specifically along the route from Roscommon Abbey to the three churches, which is known locally as the Spire quarter. So the streets that were selected are in the heart of the historic town and were identified as those most in need of this initial focus of this conservation work. The area is designated an architectural conservation area with a number of buildings on the National Inventory of Architectural Heritage, or are recorded as protected structures. The buildings included were primarily two-storey terraces with residents overhead. However, some of these premises are now fully residential. Some of these buildings retained their traditional shop fronts, and there are many architectural features on these streets. Another reason for selecting these streets was the high residential and commercial vacancy, particularly on Church Street, which impacted on the condition of the buildings and the overall usage of this link street from the administrative centre of the town to the town centre. Okay. So Roscommon Town team, in conjunction with our Heritage Officer, have developed an interactive heritage trail of the town. So this trail connects all of the main historic buildings in town from at the bottom, Roscommon Abbey, up through the Spire quarter, continuing up to the Roscommon Norman Castle and back to the workhouse. So Church Street and Abbey Street were selected as the first phase of this conservation of this historical part of the town, as they were deemed to be in the most need. So our objectives for the HDI in Roscommon included to decrease the number of vacant properties in the area, to retain the unique heritage aspect of these important streets. We wanted to, by conserving these heritage buildings, we wanted to create a desirable place to live, visit and do business. Also, we wanted to increase visitor numbers and dwell time on these streets for the benefit of current businesses and to encourage additional businesses and residents to the area. So these objectives sit within our overall strategic vision for Roscommon Town, which is to create a vibrant and livable town. We have been successful in securing funding from other sources, including a 2018 Town and Village Renewal project, which concentrated on enhancing Roscommon Castle and Abbey, an outdoor recreation infrastructure scheme project which focused on Loughnane Park, including tourism information boards on its history, and a sculpture trail focusing on the heritage of the park. We are currently rolling out a URDF project which focuses on reimagining the town centre, with construction due to commence shortly. But the HTI has really been the icing on the cake. It has created a very visual regeneration of the area and has really caught the imagination of people. And the feedback we have gotten is that people have been wowed by the transformation of this part of the town. So the preliminary phase of how we actioned the project included the following steps. The owners were identified and an information letter issued outlining the steps in participating in the scheme. We then had our conservation architect, Michael Coyle, who carried out a property inspection on each of the properties part of the scheme. A construction tender was then prepared based on the architect's report. A letter then issued to each of the affected property owners detailing the final scope of works and the costs involved. So in order to take part on the scheme, it was necessary for the property owners to submit a letter of consent and to provide their match funding contribution and to secure their place. So I will now pass you over to John, who will take us through the implementation stage of the project.
Good morning all. Under this project, eligible works included repair and upgrade of street-facing external facades, preventative maintenance of the roofs, gutters, chimneys, external render, windows and shop fronts, visual improvements to the exterior of the buildings, including painting, joinery, ironwork, removal of redundant cables. During the work phase, following challenges and learning, we'll say examples of this is managing property owners' expectations. Where some property owners were requesting all kinds of extra work outside the agreed scope of works, such as painting or roof repairs to the back of buildings. Expectations were managed by communicating frequently with property owners, clarifying the type of works allowed under the conditions of the scheme, and agreeing on the scope of works. Emphasizing the scheme of objectives, work, preventative maintenance, and repairs with a specific focus on improving the street aesthetics as a whole. The owner of the property shown on the right hand side made arrangements with the contractor carrying out the works to carry out roof repairs to the back of the building and splice repairs to external doors. This demonstrates the value of the HDI funding, increasing awareness of the importance of preventative maintenance and encouraging property owners to carry out additional works beyond the scope of the scheme and save these buildings for generations to come. Another part was emphasizing conservation focus. An example is that I came across is where one property owner wanted to replace old timber sash windows with new PVC windows. He made the argument that it would be cheaper to do so and also more energy efficient, which is correct. But once again, the conservation objectives of the HDI had to be explained, and the importance of saving these architecturally important elements of a particular structure. I use the saying from our conservation architect, if your tooth has a hole in it, would you have it taken out, or would you try and save it by having it filled? After a lot of negotiation between property owner, myself, conservation architect, and explaining windows can be taken out and replaced, we convinced the owner to carry out SPLICE repairs to windows, and he is very happy with the outcome. Collecting match funding before works commenced was challenging. Detailed inspections were carried out of the buildings included in the scheme prior to going to tender. This was important to give greater certainty on the agreed scope of works and match funding requirements for each building. Strict deadlines were given to property owners regarding submitting match funding. One building with ownership issues led to match funding delay. This had a slight impact on the project's programme. Scaffolding was erected, but works didn't start. No match funding was submitted. So we moved on to another property we'll have on backup list. Agreeing to a heritage colour scheme to suit overall streetscape. The colour schemes chosen were quite bold, as Michael said, the conservation architect said, and first choices were not always to everyone's taste when shown to the owners. Alternative, if not, we show them maybe an alternative colour. We emphasised that the colour selection for each building was also taking account of neighbouring buildings and the streetscape as a whole. With some owners, there was an element of trust. Some didn't like our colour choice. We suggested wait until all the streets, buildings on the street is complete to see how it ties in. When the street was finished, all the street was finished, it looked great. With positive feedback from all the owners and a lot of people in the town. They were very happy in the end. This work was carried out during COVID. To mitigate against potential disruption of the works due to COVID restrictions, inspections of the buildings were fast-tracked in March 2020 prior to the start of the first lockdown. As we weren't able to meet in a group setting, property owners, Chinese whispers began to spread. Examples of those, how much match funding each were paying, and so on. This reinforced the importance of having a fair and equitable system of calculating match funding based on each scope of works. So if you move on to the next slide, you see before and after photographs. The building on the on the right picture on the left side of that blue picture is a 19th century thatched building. Works carried out. The front slope of the roof was re-roofed. Existing slates were salvaged as much as possible and new ones matching. The render line repairs to a render, splice repairs to shop front, cast iron gutters and downpipes were installed, and chimney led repairs. And the next one is before and after of the old tax office in Roscommon. It was constructed in 1836 and was structure, and it was rated as having regional significance in the IAH survey. Works carried out here was cleaning window facade, gutter and downpipe repairs, major splice repairs to all the windows in the front and side elevations, carried out by very experienced and skilled joiners, and repairs to coins. And so if you move on to the next slide, you'll see before and after repairs. This particular owner carried out extra works, as I mentioned earlier. We re-roofed the front as part of the HTI. The owner separately carried out repairs to the roof on the back. This building has been derelict for 50 to 70 years. He is now planning to open up a coffee shop. Thank you very much.
Just to conclude, we just a couple of images there of the difference made with the splice repairs, which were done, as John said, by trained joiner, training up both in all the trades. There was younger people working with them, and that's been emphasised, I think, by others as well. The key thing. Just a close-up of the doors on the cornerstone building that John referred to there. You can see that the state, I suppose, there's 3 sets of doors, and excuse me, the massive difference that was made, and I suppose very much the challenge of convincing owners that rather than take it out and put in a new PVC version, that skilled joiners can make a massive difference with splice repairs. Sorry, my system is slow to move on. Just in conclusion there, just to give you an overall view of how the street looks. We were taking some pictures yesterday. Unfortunately, it wasn't the nicest day either. But this street here, as we said, links from the administrative section where the Gardaí and our offices are right down to Main Street, where we're currently doing works. And we've applied under URDF 2020 to do additional works on the street, including making it a one-way street and part of it, just so that as the owners have the confidence to invest in it, that it makes it a more livable street. So just to finish, just to say thanks very much. It's been great to work with the Heritage Council again this year, and we're hoping to be in the running again in 2021. Thanks very much.